Hello, sleepy soul. The night is quiet, the world is asleep, and something is waiting in the dark. Before we begin, subscribe to the channel and write your country and current time in the comments. Now listen carefully. The first thing I learned about our new house was that silence could have wait. It pressed against the walls at night. It gathered under doors. It sat beside me in the kitchen while the refrigerator hummed and the city breathed outside in wet, distant sounds. We moved there in October, after my mother said we needed a clean beginning. That was what she called it, a clean beginning. I knew better. Clean beginnings didn't come in cardboard boxes, unpaid bills, and the kind of quiet people used after screaming at each other for years. My father had left 3 months earlier, not dramatically, not with a slammed door or broken glass. He simply became less present, then gone. My mother stopped sleeping. I stopped talking at school. We moved across the city to a narrow old house wedged between apartment buildings and a corner cafe with fogged windows and soft jazz playing every evening. At night, neon from the laundromat bled pink and blue across my bedroom ceiling. Rain tapped the glass. Pipes clicked in the walls. And every night, at exactly 3:17 a.m., the man across the alley smiled at me. He lived in the building beside ours, 3rd floor, one window always lit. I noticed him during my first week there, when sleep still felt like a place I couldn't enter. I woke to my phone buzzing. No notification, just the screen glowing. 3:17 a.m. Across the alley, through the rain-streaked glass, he stood in his window. Thin, gray-haired, wearing a dark sweater, smiling, not waving, not moving, just smiling. I closed my curtains. The next night I woke again. 3:17. There he was. Same window. Same smile. I told myself it was nothing. Insomnia did strange things to lonely people. Maybe he had a cat. Maybe he smoked by the window. Maybe he wasn't even looking at me. I wanted to believe it. By then my mother had met someone. His name was Adrian Vale. She said his name carefully, like it was a fragile object. He was a therapist, or had been, a grief counselor. He had soft hands, polished shoes, and a way of listening that made silence feel intentional. He came over first with soup, then coffee, then a toolbox. You shouldn't have to fix everything alone, he told my mother. She cried in the kitchen after he left. I hated him for that. Then I hated myself because he was kind to me. He remembered I liked black coffee after hearing it once. He noticed I avoided mirrors. He asked about school without sounding like he was asking for a report. You're rebuilding, he told me one evening while rain slid down the windows. People underestimate how violent rebuilding can feel. I looked at him. No one had said it like that before. Violent. Accurate. So I let myself trust him a little. Maybe that was how it started. Not with fear. With relief. The smiling neighbor kept appearing. 3:17. Always. Some nights, I watched him through a gap in the curtain. The alley below shone with rainwater and neon reflections. Trash bags leaned against brick walls. Somewhere far away, sirens rose and disappeared. His smile never changed. One morning, I mentioned him to Adrian. We were in the cafe on the corner. Soft jazz, burnt espresso, people moving past the windows like ghosts behind fog. The man across from my room, I said. He stands at his window every night. Adrian stirred his coffee once. What time? I almost laughed. That's a weird first question. He smiled faintly. Patterns matter. 3:17. His spoon stopped. Only for a second. Then it moved again. Some people are lonely in visible ways, he said. That sounded wise enough to be meaningless. I told myself it made sense. A few days later, I found the posters. The basement was colder than the rest of the house, with concrete walls and a smell like wet paper. I had gone down looking for old extension cords because my charger kept dying beside my bed. The light flickered. The furnace hummed. Behind a stack of paint cans, I found a metal filing box. Inside were missing person posters. Not one, not two, 7. The paper was yellowed at the edges. Some were folded. Some had water stains. Faces stared up at me beneath bold black letters. Missing. A woman named Maribel. A teenage boy named Simon Hask. A man named Daniel Ruiz. A little girl named Elodie Crane. Different years. Different faces. Same address. Our address. I sat on the basement floor until my legs went numb. Above me, pipes groaned. Footsteps crossed the kitchen. Slow. Measured. "Are you down there?" Adrian called. His voice was calm. Too calm. I shoved the posters back into the box and pushed it behind the can. "Yeah," I said, looking for a cord. He came halfway down the stairs. His body blocked the light. "You okay?" "Fine. You sound scared." I looked up at him. He smiled gently. "You do that when you're scared," he said. "Your voice gets smaller." No one knew that, not even my mother. That night, my phone buzzed at 3:17. This time there was a message from an unknown number. "Do not close the curtains." My stomach turned cold. Across the alley, the neighbor stood at his window, smiling, but now one hand was pressed flat to the glass. Not a wave, a warning. I should have told my mother everything. Instead, I searched the missing names online. Rain ticked against my window. The radiator hissed. Somewhere through the wall, a neighbor played old jazz low enough that it felt imagined. Maribel had vanished in 2009. Daniel Ruiz in 2014. Simon Hask in 2018. All had lived in our house. All had disappeared after what news articles called periods of emotional instability. I kept reading until the words blurred. Then an email arrived. No subject, no sender name, just one attachment, an audio file. I clicked it. My own voice came through the speakers. "I don't feel real in this house." I froze. I had said that 2 nights earlier, alone, in my room, to nobody. The recording continued. My breathing, the rain, the floor creaking outside my door. Then another voice. Soft. Male. "Good," it whispered. "That means you're becoming honest." I slammed the laptop shut. For a long time, I could only hear the refrigerator downstairs. Humming, humming, humming. The next morning, Adrian was making pancakes in our kitchen. My mother looked almost happy. That frightened me more than the email. Adrian glanced at me. "You look tired." I said nothing. He placed a plate in front of me. Blueberries arranged in a small circle. My old nickname was Blue. Only my father had called me that. Only before everything went bad. My fork slipped against the plate. Adrian watched me notice. Then he said softly, "Your mother mentioned it." She hadn't. I knew she hadn't because she hated that nickname. It belonged to before. I wanted to believe it anyway. By then, the comforting version of Adrian had become harder to separate from the other one. The one who knew my routines. The one who asked why I took longer walks after school. The one who said, "You deleted your old account," before I had told anyone I was trying to disappear from social media. Fake profiles began following me. Girls from schools I had never attended. Boys with no posts. Accounts with names built from pieces of mine. One sent me a voice note. It sounded like my mother. "Come home early today." But my mother was at work. When I called her, she said she had never sent anything. My hands shook so badly I dropped the phone on the sidewalk. Cars passed through puddles. Neon signs trembled in the wet pavement. The city looked copied from itself. That night, I searched Adrian's name. Too clean. No old photos. No real work history. No university pages. His counseling website had been created 6 weeks before we moved. The testimonials were written by people who didn't exist. I checked the metadata on the voice note. I barely understood what I was doing, but a forum explained enough. The file had been generated using an AI voice tool, uploaded from a burner phone. Near my house, my chest tightened. Not supernatural. Worse. Human. At 3:17, I opened the curtains. The neighbor was there. This time he held up a sheet of paper. 2 words, written in thick black marker. Basement wall. I ran downstairs barefoot. The house was dark except for the microwave clock and the thin blue glow under my mother's door. The appliances hummed. Rain tapped every window like fingers. In the basement, I moved the paint cans. Behind them, where the filing box had been, the wall had a loose panel. Inside was a plastic bag, a cheap phone, a flash drive, and a photograph of Adrian standing beside Mara Bell, his arm around her shoulders, his hair darker then, his smile the same. I heard the floor creak above me. One step, then another. "You found it," Adrian said. I turned. He stood at the bottom of the stairs in his socks, holding my phone. My actual phone. "I was hoping you wouldn't," he said. His voice wasn't angry. That was the worst part. He sounded disappointed, like I had failed a test. "Where's my mom?" "Asleep." "What did you do?" "Nothing irreversible." The basement light buzzed overhead. He looked around the room like he owned the air. "You were doing well," he said. "You were lonely, fractured, open. That's when people can become truer versions of themselves." I backed away. He noticed. "You think I hurt people? Did you?" He breathed out slowly. People disappear from themselves long before they disappear from rooms. It was the kind of sentence that wanted to sound profound. It sounded rehearsed. My hand closed around the cheap phone behind my back. The screen lit. No passcode. One saved contact. Window. I pressed call. Across the alley, through the basement window, blue police lights suddenly broke against the wet brick. Adrian heard them. For the first time, his face changed. Not fear exactly. Irritation. Like reality had interrupted him. The next minutes came in pieces. Heavy footsteps upstairs. A voice shouting my mother's name. Adrian grabbing my wrist. Me pulling away. The smell of dust and rain. The neighbor's face at the basement window, no longer smiling. Police filled the house. Adrian did not run. People like him rarely do. They prefer to be misunderstood in custody. Later, they told us his real name was not Adrian Vale. He had used several. He found women through dating apps, grief groups, divorce forums, support pages. He studied their children through social media, old posts, school tags, leaked passwords, location metadata. He did not choose houses. He chose wounds. The missing people were not all dead. Some had been found alive years later, living under different names, convinced they had chosen to vanish. That was his gift, not murder, erosion. You learned your private language, then used it to rewrite you. The smiling neighbor's name was Mr. Corbin. His sister had been Mara Bell. He had watched the house for years because police had stopped listening to him. He smiled every night at 3:17 because that was the time Mara had called him before she vanished. He thought if anyone inside looked scared enough, awake enough, he might get another chance to warn them. I used to think fear was the moment something happened. It isn't. Fear is what remains after. It is checking locks 3 times, covering cameras, hating unknown numbers, hearing your name in a stranger's mouth and feeling your skin go cold. My mother sold the house. We moved again. Another clean beginning. But I don't believe in those anymore. Some places leave fingerprints on you. Some people enter your life so quietly that by the time you notice the door is open, they're already speaking in your voice. I still wake sometimes at 3:17, rain or no rain, city or silence, and I think about trust, how it is not a door. Not really. It is a window, and every window reflects 2 things at once: the person outside, and the person you become while being watched. Story 2. Rain makes every city feel like it is hiding something. That was the first thing I learned after moving into apartment 6B. At night, the streets below my window blurred into neon, red brake lights, blue pharmacy signs, the green pulse of a late-night cafe across the road. Everything reflected in the wet pavement. Everything looked doubled. I had moved there after Daniel. After the shouting, the apologies, the way he could make my memories feel unreliable. I told everyone I needed a fresh start. Really, I needed silence. But silence, I learned, has layers. The hum of the refrigerator, the radiator clicking in the walls, the elevator cables groaning behind concrete, the soft jazz from the apartment next door, always after midnight. And then, 2 weeks after Maya disappeared, my phone buzzed. One voice note. No message. No text. Just her name. Maya. My hand went cold before I pressed play. Rain tapped the window. Then her voice filled my room. Soft. Breathless. Lena, do not open the door tonight. I stopped breathing. Maya had been missing for 14 days. Not dead. Not officially. Just gone. Her apartment unlocked. Her phone off. Her coat still hanging by the door. I played it again. Do not open the door tonight. Behind her voice was static. And something else. A low hum. Like an appliance. Or a wall breathing. 10 minutes later, someone knocked on my door. 3 slow taps. I stood in the hallway with my phone in my hand and my heart crawling up my throat. The peephole showed nothing. Just empty corridor. Yellow light. Dirty carpet. I told myself it was a neighbor. A mistake. A delivery. I wanted to believe it. The next morning, I took the voice note to the police. The officer listened with the tired face people use when they are trying not to promise anything. Could be old, he said. Could be edited. It came from her account. Accounts can be accessed. He was not cruel, just practical. That was worse. On my way home, I stopped at the cafe across the street. The one with fogged windows and soft lamps, and people who looked like they belonged somewhere. That was where I met Elias. He was sitting by the window, reading a paperback with a cracked spine. He looked up when I dropped my keys. You live across the street, he said. I froze. He smiled gently. Sorry, I've seen you from here. Not in a creepy way. That should have been enough. It wasn't. He helped me gather my things. Bought me tea without asking too many questions. He had a calm voice. Careful eyes. The kind of presence that made the air feel less sharp. You look like you haven't slept, he said. I haven't. Bad dreams. Bad life. He nodded like he understood that answer completely. For the first time in months, I did not feel like explaining myself was a form of begging. So I let him sit with me. That night, another voice note came. Maya again. Moved the chair away from the bedroom door. I stared at my screen. The chair was there. I had wedged it under the handle after the knocking. No one knew. No one could know. I looked around my apartment. The shadows sat in corners like patient animals. The refrigerator hummed. Somewhere above me, footsteps crossed a floor slowly. I told myself there were explanations. Maybe my camera had been hacked. Maybe Daniel. Maybe Maya had sent scheduled messages before disappearing. Maybe grief had made me stupid. Maybe I was overthinking. The next note arrived the following night at 1:12 a.m. Your blue mug is cracked. Don't drink from it. The blue mug sat beside my sink, cracked from handle to base. I had noticed it that morning and said nothing to anyone. Not even Elias. Especially not Elias. But when I saw him the next afternoon, rainwater shining on his black coat, I told him about the messages. Not everything. Just enough. He listened without interrupting. That sounds terrifying, he said. No disbelief. No performance. No Daniel-style smile that meant I was being dramatic. Have you checked for spyware? I don't know how. I can help. I wanted to say no. Instead, I handed him my phone. He was careful with it, almost reverent. He checked apps, permissions, login locations. He found 2 unknown devices connected to my email. My stomach sank. Could be old, he said. Still change everything. He wrote down steps on a napkin. Passwords. 2-factor authentication. Backup email. Factory reset. His handwriting was neat. Intimate. That night, the voice note said, Good girl. New passwords. I dropped the phone. It hit the floor and kept playing. Maya's voice softer now. He knows you like being helped. The room seemed to tilt. Outside, a siren passed and faded into the rain. For 3 days, I barely slept. I stopped posting online. I deleted the dating apps I had installed in a moment of desperate optimism. I covered my laptop camera. I unplugged the smart speaker Daniel had given me and threw it into a drawer like it was alive. Still, the notes came. You hum when you're scared. You sleep on the left side now. You still check Daniel's profile. You miss the version of him that never existed. That one broke something in me. Because it was true. Not love. Not exactly. Just the addiction to being known even badly. Elias started walking me home from the cafe. He never pushed. Never touched me without permission. He remembered I liked cinnamon in coffee. He noticed when I wore Maya's silver ring on a chain around my neck. Was that hers? He asked. I looked down. How did you know? You touched it when you said her name. It made sense. I told myself it made sense. But later, in the bathroom mirror, with steam curling around my face, I noticed something behind the vent above the sink. A red dot. Tiny. Almost invisible. I stood very still. The radiator clicked. The phone buzzed. Maya's voice whispered, "Don't look at it too long." I left the apartment barefoot. Down 6 flights. Into the lobby. Into the rain. I called the police from the sidewalk, shaking so hard I could barely speak. They came this time. 2 officers. A building manager. A maintenance man with a flashlight and a face that lost color as he removed the vent cover. Inside was a camera. Small. Wireless. Magnet mounted. Behind it, a thin gap opened into the service wall. The building manager kept saying, "That shouldn't be accessible." But it was. The service wall ran vertically through the building. Pipes, wiring, old insulation, maintenance crawl spaces from when the building had been renovated badly and cheaply. A hidden spine inside the place where I had been trying to heal. They found more. A microphone behind the kitchen outlet. A tracker under my desk. A tiny recording device taped inside the hollow space behind my bedroom wall. Not magic. Not ghosts. Engineering. Patience. Obsession. When they traced the devices, the signals led to prepaid accounts, fake emails, burner numbers. The voice notes had been sent through Maya's account after someone accessed her cloud backup. Her voice had been cloned from years of videos and messages. The officer said the words carefully. AI-generated audio. I thought of Maya laughing in old clips. Maya singing badly in taxis. Maya saying my childhood nickname, Lenny, when I cried after Daniel. All of it stolen, made into a weapon. Then my phone buzzed again. In the police station. Maya's name. Everyone went quiet. The detective nodded for me to play it. The voice was not Maya's this time. It was Elias. Calm. Warm. Almost sad. You were easier to protect when you were lonely. I felt my body go numb. The detective took the phone from my hand. Elias continued. You kept choosing people who hurt you loudly. I only listened quietly. There's a difference. The message ended. Soft jazz played faintly in the background. From the apartment next door. Police found his cafe receipts, fake profiles, screenshots of my posts, archived dating app chats, photos taken from across the street, folders labeled with women's names. Maya's name was there. So was mine. He had not just watched us. He had studied us. Maya had noticed first. She had emailed herself evidence before she vanished. The police found the draft in her account after reopening the case. She had written one line. He lives close enough to hear the walls. They found her 3 days later in another city, alive, hiding under a name borrowed from an old school friend. She had run because she thought nobody would believe her. I understood that more than I wanted to. Elias was arrested in the maintenance corridor behind my bathroom wall. He did not run. He only looked at me through the open panel, dust on his coat, face pale in the flashlight beam. You were never unsafe with me, he said. That was the last thing he said to me. Not sorry, not ashamed, just offended that I had misunderstood the shape of his control. Months later, I moved again. Smaller place, higher floor, new locks, no smart devices, no dating apps, no public posts with windows in the background. Maya and I still send voice notes. Not often, sometimes just breathing, sometimes rain, sometimes a song playing in a cafe, proof that we are somewhere ordinary and alive. I still wake at 1:12 a.m. I still listen to walls. Healing is not becoming fearless. It is learning which fear belongs to the present, and which fear was installed in you by someone who wanted access. People say trust is a door. I don't think that is true anymore. Trust is a wall, built slowly, inspected carefully, never left hollow, because obsession does not always arrive screaming. Sometimes it brings tea. Sometimes it remembers your favorite song. Sometimes it speaks in the voice of someone you loved and tells you it is only trying to keep you safe. Story 3. The rain followed me to the city. It followed me from the train station, down the cold streets, across the cracked sidewalks where neon signs bled pink and blue into puddles. It followed me into the lobby of the Bellwether Hotel, where the floors smelled of lemon polish, old carpet, and expensive loneliness. I had moved 3 months after the breakup. That was what I called it because escape sounded too dramatic, and surviving him sounded too true. My ex, Daniel, never hit me. People liked that detail. It made everything easier for them. He only corrected me, watched me, read my messages, told me I remembered things wrong, told me I was too emotional, too suspicious, too broken to trust my own mind. By the time I left, I apologized to doorways when I bumped into them. The Bellwether hired me as a cleaner because I didn't ask questions and didn't mind night shifts. I liked empty hallways. I liked humming appliances and distant music through walls. I liked rooms after people had left them. Rooms were honest after checkout. Lipstick on glasses, coins under beds, receipts in bins, tiny ruins of private lives. Except room 309. On my first night, Mr. Vale, the hotel manager, handed me a key card and a list of floors. "Never enter 309, he said. He was calm about it. Too calm. "Even if it's empty?" I asked. "Especially if it's empty." I waited for a joke. There wasn't one. "It's reserved," he said. "For who?" His eyes moved to the security camera above the staff elevator. "No one you need to meet." So I didn't enter room 309. For weeks, I cleaned around it. I vacuumed past its door, refilled towels in 307, changed sheets in 311. Outside 309, the hallway always felt colder, not haunted, just watched. The little red light on the smoke detector blinked like a patient eye. At night, my phone buzzed too much. Dating apps, spam emails, unknown numbers, voice notes from profiles with no faces. I had joined one app because my therapist said rebuilding life meant allowing safe connection. I hated that phrase, safe connection. It sounded like something sold in airports. Then I matched with Eli. His profile photo was soft-lit and ordinary. Brown coat, tired eyes, a paperback in one hand. His first message said, "You look like someone who drinks coffee even when it hurts your stomach." I stared at it for a long time. It was true. I told myself it was a lucky guess. We met at a cafe near the hotel, the kind with fogged windows and soft jazz playing under the clatter of cups. Rain tapped the glass. Cars hissed outside. Eli listened like listening was a skill he had spent years perfecting. He didn't interrupt, didn't flirt too hard, didn't ask for things. When I said I hated sleeping in silence, he said, "Because silence makes room for old voices." I laughed, but my throat tightened. "That's very specific." He smiled. "People are specific when they're hurt." I wanted to believe it. The first strange thing happened 2 nights later. I was cleaning 312 when I heard a child crying. Soft, muffled, coming from room 309. I froze with a pillowcase in my hands. The sound rose and broke, a small voice gasping between sobs. I radioed the front desk. "Possible child inside 309, I whispered. Static. Then Mr. Vale. "Walk away. There's someone crying. Walk away, Mara." My name in his mouth sounded like a warning. But the crying continued. Small, helpless. I had a younger brother once. Adam. He used to cry like that after nightmares, before he got older and learned silence from the rest of us. I used my MasterCard. The lock flashed green. Room 309 opened with a sigh. Inside, everything looked normal. Bed made, curtains drawn, city light leaking around the edges. The air smelled faintly of ozone and lavender cleaner. A lamp glowed beside a silver ice bucket. No child, no luggage, no sound except the low hum of the mini fridge. Then I saw the mirrors. There were too many. One above the desk, one on the wardrobe, one beside the bathroom, one full length near the bed. In each reflection, I saw myself, but not quite. In the desk mirror, I stood in the lobby wearing my coat, handing my phone to Eli while he smiled. In the wardrobe mirror, I sat alone in my apartment, ignoring a call from an unknown number while someone stood outside my door. In the bathroom mirror, I watched myself deleting an email without reading it. In the full-length mirror, I saw my own face on a dating profile I had never made. The images were silent, clear, almost live. My breath went shallow. Then all the mirrors went black. A phone buzzed on the bed. Not mine, an old black burner phone. One message on the screen: "You always open doors when guilt knocks." I ran. For 2 days, I told no one. I told myself it was a prank, some influencer stunt, some guest with hidden projectors. Maybe I was exhausted. Maybe trauma made patterns out of shadows. Maybe I was overthinking. Eli messaged me that night. "Long shift. You forgot dinner again." I hadn't told him my schedule. I stared at the screen while my refrigerator hummed in the dark apartment. Rain tapped the window. Somewhere upstairs, footsteps crossed the ceiling and stopped directly above my bed. I typed, "How did you know?" He replied, "You said you do that when anxious." I scrolled our messages. I had not said that. I told myself it made sense. Maybe I had mentioned it at the cafe. Maybe I forgot. The next week became a series of small wrongness. A playlist appeared in my email. Soft jazz, old French songs, one track Daniel used to hum when he wanted me calm before an argument. A package arrived at my apartment. Inside was my favorite tea. No note. I had only bought that tea once months ago, using a delivery app. At work, Mr. Vale avoided me. The cameras seemed newly polished. The hallways felt longer. When I passed 309, my phone warmed in my pocket, buzzing with notifications from accounts I didn't recognize. Fake profiles followed me. Women with empty faces. Names like Claire, Mina, Elise. One sent me a voice note. At first, it was static. Then my own voice whispered, "I'm sorry, Adam." I dropped the phone. Adam had died when I was 19, not because of me, not exactly, but guilt is not a courtroom. It does not need evidence. It only needs a quiet room and enough time. The voice was mine, not a recording I remembered. An imitation. AI, I thought. Voice cloning. Scraped from videos. Old posts. Maybe from the therapy voice journals Daniel made me send, because he said honesty needed proof. My hands shook so badly I couldn't unlock my screen. That night, Eli came to the cafe before I asked him to. He sat across from me in his brown coat, rain shining on his shoulders. "You look scared," he said. I hated how relieved I felt to see him. "I think someone is watching me." His expression changed with perfect concern. "Daniel." "No." "Then who?" "I don't know." He reached across the table, not touching me, just close enough to seem kind. "Mara, people who've been controlled before sometimes feel control everywhere." I looked at him. The cafe lights reflected in the window behind him, and for a moment his face doubled there. One soft, one empty. "How do you know Daniel controlled me?" He paused. "You told me." "No, I didn't." Rain ticked against the glass. The jazz kept playing. Eli leaned back slowly. "You're tired." There it was, the old shape of a sentence. Not cruel, not loud, just a hand placed gently over my reality. I left before he could follow. My apartment was silent when I got home, but not empty silent. Listening silent. The air smelled faintly of cold air and someone else's soap. My laptop was open. I never left it open. On the screen was an email draft addressed to myself. Subject, room 309. Body, you think the room shows the future. It doesn't. It shows the next mistake your guilt will make for you. Attached were images. Me entering the hotel. Me at the cafe. Me sleeping. My stomach turned to ice. The last photo was taken from inside my apartment, behind my own shoulder. I called the police. The officer on the phone asked if there was forced entry. I said no. She asked if I had evidence. I said yes. She told me not to touch anything and to wait in the hallway if I felt unsafe. In the hallway, the lights buzzed. My phone buzzed too. Unknown number. A voice note. Eli's voice. I'm not your enemy, Mara. I'm the only one showing you what people can do with the pieces you leave behind. Then another voice. Daniel's. You always make people prove they love you. I nearly dropped the phone. Daniel lived 3 cities away. Or I thought he did. The police found a pinhole camera inside my smoke detector. Another behind the bookshelf. A tracking tag sewn into the lining of my work bag. No fingerprints. Paid devices. Cheap and clean. When they asked about Eli, I showed them the app. His profile was gone. Not unmatched. Gone. As if he had never existed. Mr. Vale finally talked after the police arrived at the bellwether. Room 309 had been leased for 6 months by a private digital security consultant under a company name that led nowhere. Paid in advance. No overnight guests. Equipment deliveries. Cameras listed as conference hardware. Why warn staff not to enter? The detective asked. Vale looked older under fluorescent light. They paid well, he said, and they said it involved sensitive legal recordings. The detective's face hardened. Inside 309, they found no ghosts. Only screens behind glass. Smart mirrors. Micro cameras. Directional speakers. Routers. Burner phones. A laptop wiped clean, but not well enough. Folders recovered later with names of women. Not just me. Claire. Mina. Elise. The fake profiles had been real victims first. Each had been studied, mirrored, contacted, softened, invaded. Eli was not Eli. His real name was Adrian Cole, former behavioral data analyst. Contract work for private reputation firms. Good at metadata, good at voices, good at becoming whatever lonely people needed long enough to open the next door. He had found me through old public posts, dating apps, leaked data, hotel staff schedules, delivery records, and Daniel. That was the final cruelty. Daniel had not hired him, not exactly. He had posted about me in a private forum for false accusations and unstable exes. Photos, old voice notes, personal details, enough for Adrian to build a map of my wounds. The confrontation happened 2 nights later. The police used me carefully. I hated that I agreed, but I wanted him visible. I wanted him human-sized. I returned to the cafe at 10:15 p.m., wearing a wire under my sweater. Rain turned the windows into trembling mirrors. A siren wailed far away and dissolved into traffic. Adrian came in as Eli. Same coat, same tired eyes. He sat across from me. You came, he said. So did you. A small smile. You wanted answers. No, I said. I wanted proof. His gaze moved once, barely, toward the street. You think they'll understand? He asked softly. People give themselves away every day. Photos, posts, preferences, sleep patterns, grief. I only arranged the mirror. You used my brother. I used what was already controlling you. The words were calm, almost tender. That was the worst part. Not madness. Method. You don't trap people in rooms, I said. His smile faded. You trap yourselves. The police moved before he stood. Chair legs scraped. Cups rattled. Someone gasped. Adrian did not run. He only looked at me through the rain-streaked window as they turned him around. For 1 second, his reflection lined up with mine. Then it broke. Afterward, people asked if I felt safe. I learned that safety is not a place you return to. It is something you rebuild badly, with locks, therapy, new passwords, and mornings when you manage to drink coffee without checking the window first. I quit the bellwether. Room 309 was stripped, repainted, rented again. Guests probably sleep there now under clean sheets, complaining about room service, unaware that guilt once had cables in the walls. I still hear phones buzz when they don't. I still pause at mirrors, not because they show the future, because they remind me how easily a person can be edited by someone who studies their fear. Trust is not blindness. Privacy is not paranoia. And memory is not a locked room. It is a door. Every day, we decide who gets a key. Story 4. Rain makes every city look like it is trying to forget itself. That was the first thing I noticed when I came back home. The street outside our apartment glowed with broken neon from the pharmacy sign across the road. Red, blue, red again. The pavement shone like black glass. Cars hissed through puddles. Somewhere above us, a neighbor played soft jazz through thin walls, the same 3 notes repeating as if the song had lost its way. I had come home because I had nowhere else to go. My girlfriend had left me 2 weeks earlier with a message that was calm enough to hurt more than shouting. She said I was difficult to love, too quiet, too watchful, too damaged by things that happened before her. Maybe she was right. So I packed 2 bags, deleted her number, and returned to my parents' apartment, where every room still carried the shape of my missing brother. Adam had vanished 5 years ago. He was 21 then. Tall, charming, the perfect brother. The kind of son people praised in front of you while forgetting you were standing there. My mother kept his room untouched, his old headphones on the desk, his faded football scarf hanging behind the door, his cologne bottle still half full, though the smell had turned stale and ghostly. Then, on a Thursday night in November, during rain so heavy it blurred the city lights into wounds, Adam came home. He stood outside our door at 11:43 p.m. Older, thinner, wearing a black coat soaked at the shoulders. My mother opened the door and made a sound I had never heard before. Not joy, not grief. Something broken repairing itself too quickly. My father held him for almost a minute. I stood behind them in the hallway, barefoot, listening to the refrigerator hum and the rain tapping the kitchen window. Adam looked at me over my mother's shoulder. "Little Crow," he said softly. That was my childhood nickname. Nobody had called me that in years. I wanted to believe it, so I did. For the first week, the apartment became a shrine to happiness. Relatives called, neighbors cried, old photos returned to the dining table. My mother cooked food Adam used to love. My father stopped drinking alone by the balcony door. Adam answered questions carefully. Where had he been? Mostly north. Why did he not call? I was ashamed. What happened to him? He looked down. Some things are easier to survive than explain. It sounded true because pain often sounds vague. But small things began to press against me. Private things. At dinner, my mother laughed and said, "Remember the spoon war?" Adam smiled politely. Of course, but he did not remember. The spoon war was stupid. Me and Adam used to hide all the spoons before my father made tea, then leave one in his shoe. It was our secret, our dumb, sacred joke. Adam said, "You always hid them under the sink." I stared at him. We never hid them there. I told myself trauma changes memory. I told myself 5 years is a long time. That night, I woke at 3:12 a.m. to footsteps in the hallway. Slow, measured, not sneaking, owning the dark. I opened my bedroom door a crack. Adam stood outside my parents' room, perfectly still. Not moving, not knocking, just listening. The apartment was blue with streetlight. His reflection floated in the window at the end of the hall. His eyes were open, calm, and awake. Couldn't sleep? I whispered. He turned. "No," he said. "I don't really do that anymore." Then he smiled. Not wide, just enough. The next morning, nobody cared. My mother said, "He's been through things." My father said, "Don't make this about you." That sentence stayed with me all day. I went to a cafe near the train station because the apartment had become too warm, too full, too happy in a way that made me feel insane. The cafe was narrow, with fogged windows and yellow lamps. Rainwater slid down the glass. A woman at the next table looked up from her laptop and said, "You look like someone trying not to disappear." Her name was Mara. She was calm, early 20s, soft voice, dark coat, no perfume. She listened like listening was a skill she had studied. I told her almost nothing. Still, she understood too much. "You're the younger one," she said. "The one people expect to be grateful." I looked at her. She smiled gently. "Sorry. I guessed." Maybe she had guessed. Maybe I wanted someone to. We started messaging. Not constantly, just enough. She sent voice notes at night, when rain tapped my window and the phone buzzed against my chest. "You don't have to prove your pain to be allowed to feel it," she said once. I replayed that voice note 4 times. I needed kindness badly enough to mistake precision for intimacy. At home, Adam became perfect. Too perfect. He remembered my mother's medication schedule before she told him. He knew my father had switched from black coffee to mint tea. He knew the Wi-Fi password, even though we had changed it 2 years after he vanished. He knew I still slept with one earbud in. He knew I kept old breakup emails in a folder called receipts. I had never told anyone that. One night, my phone buzzed at 2:08 a.m. Unknown number. A voice note. At first, I thought it was Mara. Then I heard Adam's voice. "Little Crow," it said. "Stop looking." The message deleted itself before I could replay it. My hands went cold. In the kitchen, the appliances hummed. The clock clicked. From the hallway came a soft floor creak. I opened my door. Adam stood there, phone in hand. "What are you doing?" I asked. He looked at me with tired kindness. "You're not sleeping. Did you send me something?" He tilted his head. "Why would I?" Behind him, my mother's bedroom door opened. She looked frightened, but not of him. Of me. The next day, I checked everything. Email logins. Social media. My old dating app account I had not used since before my breakup. There were new logins from devices I did not recognize. A fake profile had messaged me 3 weeks earlier. Mara's profile. The photos were gone. The bio had changed to a single line. "Some people come home through the wrong door." I sat in the cafe bathroom with the lights buzzing above me, breathing into my sleeve. Maybe Mara was not real. Maybe none of this had started when Adam came home. Maybe it had started long before. I searched Adam's name. Missing forums. Old posts. Police notices. Archived articles. Then I found a comment under a 5-year-old local news clip. The username was PerfectBrother91. It had replied to every comment about Adam. Correcting people. Adding details. Describing our apartment layout. Our mother's habits. My childhood nickname. My stomach turned. The account had posted on other missing person pages too. Different names. Different families. Same pattern. A lost son. A vanished brother. Someone returning years later. Someone believed because grief wanted a body. I downloaded screenshots. Metadata. Login alerts. The disappearing message notification. Mara's old profile cache. Then an email arrived. No subject. Attachment, Adam_voice_test.wave. I clicked it. My brother's voice filled the room. Laughing. Real laughter. Young. Warm. Alive. Then another voice, flat and digital, repeated the same sentence until it sounded almost human. "Little Crow, open the door. Little Crow, open the door. Little Crow, open the door." AI voice cloning. Not perfect. Close enough for grieving people. My bedroom door opened behind me. I had not heard footsteps. Adam stood there. For the first time, he was not smiling. "You found the old account," he said. My phone was in my hand, recording. He noticed. "Good," he said. "Evidence makes you feel safer. What did you do to my brother?" He stepped inside and closed the door gently. "I gave your family what they wanted." His voice was calm, almost sad. "You watched them die slowly for 5 years. Your mother prayed to photographs. Your father blamed himself. You sat in this room turning loneliness into suspicion." He looked at my desk, my emails, my old photos. "You needed someone to organize the pain. You're not Adam." "No," he said, "but I studied him better than he studied himself." The refrigerator hummed through the wall. Far away, sirens moved through rain. I asked again, quieter, "Where is he?" Something shifted in his face. Annoyance, not guilt. He came back first. The words hollowed me. He contacted me through a support forum. He was afraid. He thought nobody would believe him. He wanted to know what had changed at home. My throat tightened. "So you used him." I learned from him. "Where is he now?" Adam looked toward the window, where our reflections stood side by side in the black glass. He ran when he understood. A knock hit the apartment door. Hard. Then another. Police. Mara had been real enough to trace. Not Mara herself. The cafe had cameras. The dating app had logs. The burner number had purchased data. My scheduled email had gone out to my cousin the moment my laptop detected the file transfer. I had been afraid, but I had not been careless. The man in my room watched me with something like admiration. "You're less fragile than your family thinks." I said nothing. The police entered with wet coats and sharp voices. My mother screamed when they touched him. My father shouted my name like I had betrayed blood itself. The man did not resist. At the doorway, he turned back to me. "You'll miss him," he said. I did not answer. 2 days later, they found my real brother. Alive, living under another name 3 cities away, terrified and thin and older than he should have been. He had come home months earlier, seen the man watching our building, and understood that someone had entered our life before he could. He had been trying to warn me through accounts that kept disappearing, through messages I thought were spam, through silence. When Adam finally walked into the apartment again, truly Adam, my mother did not run to him. Not at first. None of us trusted our own eyes anymore. He stood in the hallway wearing a gray hoodie, rain on his hair, hands trembling. "Little Crow," he said. I hated that nickname by then, but he looked at me and added, "Dad's shoe." The spoon was always in Dad's shoe. I cried before I could stop myself. Not loudly, just enough to prove I was still human. Months have passed. The apartment is quieter now. My parents speak softly around happiness, as if it might break again. Adam sleeps with the lights on. I check locks twice, sometimes 3 times. At night, my phone buzzes and my body remembers fear before my mind understands anything. Rain still taps the windows. The refrigerator still hums. Jazz still leaks through the walls from someone else's life. I used to think danger arrived loudly. A slammed door. A threat. A stranger in an alley. But sometimes danger learns your mother's recipes. It wears your brother's face. It remembers your nickname. It studies your grief until it can speak in the exact tone your loneliness has been waiting for. Trust is not a door you open once. It is a boundary you rebuild every day. And privacy is not secrecy. It is the last room inside you where no one else gets to pretend they belong. Story 5. The rain started before I arrived. It made the city look rinsed and bruised, all neon smeared across the pavement in pinks and blues. Taxi lights trembling in puddles, strangers moving with their collars up like they were hiding from themselves. I had been in the city for 6 weeks. 6 weeks since I left Adam. 6 weeks since I packed my life into 2 suitcases and told everyone I was starting over, as if starting over was something clean. It wasn't. It was an apartment that smelled like paint. A mattress on the floor, cold takeout eaten standing up, silence that pressed against the windows at night. I found the sleep study through a campus email. Volunteers needed. Paid sleep experiment. 3 nights. No phones during sessions. Full medical supervision, ***. The money was good. That was what I told myself. I wanted to believe it. The lab was on the 6th floor of an old psychology building near the river. At night, the hallways hummed with fluorescent light. The windows reflected us back in pale fragments. There were 5 of us. Priya, who studied law and drank black coffee at 10 p.m. Marcus, who smiled too much and talked when he was nervous. Noah, quiet, always watching the floor. Sophie, a music student with silver rings on every finger. And Eli. Eli arrived late, shaking rain from his coat, carrying 2 paper cups from the cafe downstairs. He gave one to me. "Chamomile," he said. "You looked like you needed something warm." I laughed because I didn't know what else to do. "How would you know?" He looked at me gently. "People who keep checking exits usually do." That should have bothered me. Instead, it felt like being seen. The researchers explained the rules from behind a glass partition. Dr. Voss was thin, calm, almost soft-spoken. Beside her stood a younger man named Keen, who never smiled and kept touching the tablet in his hands. The study measures sleep disruption and social restraint, Dr. Voss said. You'll sleep in the same observation room. Sensors will track movement, pulse, and speech. Then came the rule. No matter what happens, you do not wake each other. Marcus laughed. What does that mean? It means exactly that, Dr. Voss said. Sleepwalking, talking, distressed behaviors. You observe. You do not intervene unless instructed. The room behind the glass looked like a minimalist hospital ward. 5 beds, white sheets, small cameras in the corners, a speaker mounted near the ceiling, rain tapping the windows. No phones, no clocks, just breath, fabric, blinking monitors, and the low electrical hum of machines pretending not to listen. The first night was strange but harmless. Priya muttered case law in her sleep. Marcus snored. Sophie hummed a melody under her breath, soft as a radio in another apartment. Eli lay in the bed beside mine. You okay? He whispered once, after the lights dimmed. Yeah, you say that like someone taught you to. My chest tightened. Adam used to say that. Asterisk, you always say you're okay when you're not. It makes you hard to love. Asterisk. I turned onto my side. The room smelled faintly of disinfectant and wet wool. I'm just tired, I said. Of sleeping? Of being watched? Eli didn't answer right away. Then, quietly, sometimes being watched feels safer than being ignored. I thought about that for a long time. The next morning, we were allowed 2 hours outside before returning. I went to the cafe beneath the lab. Soft jazz played through ceiling speakers. Rain slid down the windows. My phone buzzed when they gave it back. A notification from a dating app. New match, Theo. No photo, just a blurred city skyline and a bio that said, I like people who notice small things. I deleted the app 6 months ago, or I thought I had. That night, Eli sat across from me in the waiting area, stirring sugar into tea he didn't drink. You like old jazz, he said. I looked up. What? The cafe. You seemed calmer when it played. Everyone likes cafe music. Not everyone taps their thumb in time with the bass line. I stared at him. He smiled, apologetic. Sorry, I noticed patterns. Maybe I was overthinking. That was what trauma did. It made coincidence look like threat. It made kindness look rehearsed. It made every gentle voice sound like the beginning of a locked room. I told myself it made sense. On the second night, Noah sat up at 3:17 a.m. I only knew the time because Dr. Voss said it through the speaker. Subject 3 is entering parasomnia. Do not wake him. Noah's eyes were open but empty. He turned toward the glass. Are you recording this? He asked. No answer. His voice was flat, mechanical. Priya whispered, Jesus. Eli touched his finger to his lips. No waking. No interference. Noah lay down again after 3 minutes. In the morning, he remembered nothing, but there was an email waiting on my phone. No subject, no sender name, just one line. You still sleep on your left side when you're scared. My blood went cold. I checked the address. Random letters. A burner account. I showed Eli first. He frowned with the exact softness I needed. Could be spam. Spam doesn't know how I sleep. He looked toward the elevators. Did Adam ever track your phone? I hadn't told him Adam's name. The hallway became very quiet. Only the vending machine humming. Rain against glass. My own pulse moving through my ears. How do you know his name? Eli blinked. You said it yesterday. No, I didn't. His face changed then. Not much. Just enough. A small adjustment behind the eyes. I'm sorry, he said. I must have heard it from one of the intake forms. The forms were confidential, but I wanted to believe him. Because he was calm. Because I was lonely. Because fear is exhausting, and sometimes the person offering you a chair becomes the room you sit in. The third night, the rain turned harder. It struck the windows like fingernails. The city outside disappeared into fog and neon. The observation glass reflected our beds, making it look like 10 of us were lying there instead of 5. Dr. Voss gave instructions. Same rule. No waking. No physical contact. Wait for researcher guidance. Keen avoided looking at us. His tablet was off. I noticed that. Then the lights dimmed. For a while, nothing happened. Sophie hummed. Marcus breathed through his mouth. Noah turned repeatedly, sheets whispering. Eli was awake. I knew because his breathing never changed. At 2:46 a.m., Priya began speaking. Not mumbling. Speaking. But the voice was not hers. It was lower, smooth, male, and familiar. Lena, it said. My old nickname. The one Adam used before he learned how to make it hurt. Every muscle in my body locked. Priya's eyes remained closed. Her lips moved slightly, but the voice filled the room from everywhere. Lena, you always leave lights on because silence makes shapes. Sophie sat upright. Marcus whispered, What the hell? The speaker crackled. Then nothing. No Dr. Voss. No instruction. Behind the glass, the control room was dark. Empty. Priya kept speaking. You keep the blue mug on the right side of the sink. You check the door twice. 3 times on bad nights. You deleted the photo, but not the backup. My mouth went dry. No one knew that. No one. Eli's hand found mine in the dark. Warm. Steady. Don't react, he whispered. But his voice had changed. Not in sound. In ownership. The room seemed to tilt. Priya's borrowed voice continued. You wanted someone to notice. That's why this worked. I pulled my hand away. Eli? He looked at me with pity so perfect it felt manufactured. I did notice. The glass stayed black. The researchers did not come. Marcus got out of bed. The speaker snapped alive with Dr. Voss's recorded voice. Do not wake each other. Recorded. Not live. That was when I understood. This wasn't a sleep study. Not really. The experiment wasn't measuring dreams. It was measuring obedience under fear. How long we would follow a rule after the people who made it disappeared. How long we would let something wrong happen because authority had told us not to move. And Eli was part of it, or worse. He had built it around me. I ran. Past the beds. Past Marcus cursing. Past Sophie crying without sound. I slammed my shoulder into the door until the magnetic lock clicked open. Someone had disabled it badly or deliberately. The hallway outside was blue with emergency light. Bare feet on cold tile. Behind me, Eli walked. Not ran. Walked. Lena, he said softly. You're safe. This is your nervous system misreading care as threat. That sentence made me more afraid than shouting would have. I hit the elevator button. Nothing. My phone was locked in reception. The stairwell door opened before I touched it. Keen stood there, pale and shaking. He said it was approved, he whispered. He said it was exposure research. Who? Keen looked past me. Eli smiled. Names complicate recovery. I ran down 6 flights with the sound of their voices above me. Rain thundered against the stairwell windows. Somewhere below, a siren wailed through the city. At the lobby desk, I found the phone cabinet. Unlocked. Inside were our phones. And a laptop. Open. On the screen were folders with our names. Mine had more files than the others. Screenshots from my Instagram. Dating app messages I never sent. Metadata from photos. Voice clips from old videos. Apartment building entry times. A folder labeled Adam_archive. Another, Lena_response tests. Then I saw the other names. Women I didn't know. Cities I had never lived in. Different studies. Different fake personas. Theo, Eli, Daniel, Mark. All constructed from whatever the lonely person needed most. A listener. A protector. A mirror. I called the police from the lobby landline with shaking hands. My voice sounded far away, like it belonged to someone watching me through glass. Eli reached the bottom of the stairs before they arrived. He stood in the lobby under the broken fluorescent light, rainwater dripping from his hair. You think exposure is cruelty, he said. I think you're a stalker. He almost smiled. Stalking is an ugly word for sustained attention. Stay away from me. You don't want distance. You want control over closeness. That's different. The sirens grew louder. Red light washed over the windows. For the first time, his calm slipped. Only a little. Enough. He looked toward the door, then back at me. "You'll miss being understood." I picked up the laptop and held it against my chest. "No," I said. "I'll miss who I thought you were." The police came in with rain on their shoulders. Eli didn't fight. People like him rarely do in public. They save violence for private systems, for passwords, for silence, for names whispered at 3 a.m. in voices that should not exist. The university denied knowing the full scope. Dr. Voss said Eli had been a contracted data consultant. Keene testified. The laptop mattered. So did the burner phones found in Eli's apartment, the fake profiles, the voice models, the hidden access logs, the women who started answering police emails one by one. I moved again after that. A smaller apartment, higher floor, no dating apps, no smart speaker, no photos with windows in them. For months, every buzz of my phone felt like a hand on the back of my neck. Every footstep in the hallway became a question. Every kind stranger carried a shadow. But survival is not the same as healing. Healing was slower. It was making coffee in the morning and not checking the lock until my hands hurt. It was letting rain be rain. It was learning that being unknown is not the same as being unloved. Sometimes, late at night, the refrigerator hums and the pipes click in the walls and distant music comes through someone else's apartment. Soft jazz, almost comforting. I still sleep on my left side. I still wake when my phone buzzes. But now I understand something I didn't before. Privacy is not secrecy. Boundaries are not walls. An obsession is not love, no matter how carefully it studies your wounds. The most dangerous people do not always break into your life. Sometimes they learn the shape of your loneliness. Then they knock gently and wait for you to open the door. Story 6. Birthdays used to be simple. Cake, candles, a wish whispered into wax smoke, laughter spilling over the edges of the table. Mine stopped being simple the year I turned 7. That morning, my phone buzzed while I slept in the narrow, cold room of our apartment. Rain tapped the window. Neon from the laundromat across the street painted pink streaks on my curtains. I reached blindly for the screen. A photo. A clown. Red hair, painted smile, eyes too wide, standing across the street from our building. Alone, silent, waiting. I pressed the image to my chest. The message attached read only, "Happy birthday." I ran to the window. No one was there. The street was empty, just puddles reflecting the wet sky, the distant hum of traffic, and the fog of my own heartbeat. I told myself it was a joke, a family friend, a stranger on the internet, someone playing games with 7-year-olds. I wanted to believe it. My mother called me for breakfast. Pancakes, blueberry syrup, normalcy. I shoved the phone under my pillow. The clown returned every year. At 12, he was in our backyard. The photo showed him crouching beside the fence, holding a balloon. My father saw nothing when I pointed out the window. My mother laughed nervously. "You've got a vivid imagination," she said. I wanted to believe it. At 17, my 17th birthday, the photo arrived at 7:02 a.m., before the sun had risen. My phone buzzed with a new email. I opened it. The clown, sitting at my kitchen table. Chair pulled out, hands folded. His painted smile fixed, unblinking. I froze. The smell of toast and coffee was real in the kitchen. I could hear the refrigerator humming. Floorboards creaked. But the clown wasn't there. Or was he? I told myself it made sense. Maybe a friend. Maybe someone messing with my head. I wanted to believe it. Then I heard footsteps behind me. Soft. Measured. I spun. Empty hallway. Only the apartment humming. Rain sliding down the window. My name appeared on my phone again. "Do you see me?" I swallowed. My thumb hovered over the screen. It was not a friend. Not a prank. The next morning, I met Lila at the cafe across the street. Soft jazz. Steam rising from cups. People moving in and out like ghosts. She smiled the kind of smile that made you feel known. "You look tired," she said. "Yeah," I muttered. "Just school." She laughed softly. "You're 17. Don't pretend like you have it all together." We talked for hours. She remembered my favorite songs. My old nickname, Blue, from before my parents' fights. She asked about my mornings, my routines. She even knew about the cafe I sometimes hid in to avoid the apartment. I hadn't told her any of it. Maybe I was overthinking. Maybe I told myself it made sense. After she left, I found another email. A new photo. Lila smiling in my living room. Alone. I hadn't let her in. I didn't call her back. The clown escalated. I started noticing things. Small impossibilities. My laptop left open on the counter when I was sure I had closed it. Notes on my desk I hadn't written. The kettle switched on, humming. The apartment smelled faintly of popcorn, though I hadn't eaten any. Footsteps in the hall. Distant laughter. A piano note through the walls that wasn't mine. I became hyper-aware. Every shadow, every reflection, every buzzing phone. The clown was a countdown. I realized that slowly, like a cold fog creeping under the door. Each birthday he inched closer. From across the street, to the yard, to the window, to the room. But he wasn't chasing me. He was waiting, watching, counting. For what? I didn't know. One night, I confronted my parents. The kitchen smelled of cold coffee. Rain tapped the window. Neon reflections stained the linoleum. Do you know who this is? I showed them the photo. 17 now, shaking hands. They looked at it, faces pale. My mother's hand trembled over the table. My father's eyes flicked to the floor. Where did you get this? He said finally. From email. Phone. Every birthday. 7, 12, 17. He's always closer. My mother looked away. Her voice was quiet. We didn't know how else to protect you. Protect me? I whispered. What is this? She sighed, tears brimming. He's a reminder of what we did. My stomach turned cold. I wanted to believe it was a story, maybe something from my imagination. But the emails kept coming. The photos. The clown. Lila reappeared. She seemed concerned, genuinely. She offered tea. She asked about my routines, my favorite songs. She knew my nickname, the blue notebook under my bed. I rationalized it. Maybe I was overthinking. I told myself it made sense, until I realized her presence mirrored the clown's. Too precise, too informed, too quiet. One night, I received a video. My apartment dark. The clown standing in the hallway behind my mother and father. My parents looked at the camera, startled. My father whispered, "It's time." The clown was not there physically, only on screen, only in the photo. But the timing was impossible. The countdown was real. I began tracking everything. Metadata and emails, burner phones, fake profiles, every notification, every buzzing phone, every soft jazz note from the cafe, patterns. Repetition, observation. I traced the clown's origin. He had been photographing our house for years, using drones, reflections in windows, street cameras. Always out of sight, always counting down to the day my parents made a choice, 17 years ago. That changed everything. The clown was a manifestation, a marker, not malicious, not a threat, not a stalker, but a witness. The next morning, Lila came with coffee. "You've been up all night," she said. Her voice soft. I know. I didn't trust her. I knew too much now. Everything about her presence mirrored the clown's meticulous observation. I confronted my parents with everything I had gathered. Rain tapped the window. Neon bled through the blinds. The apartment smelled faintly of old coffee and fear. They admitted it. The story unfolded like a shadow peeling off the walls. A mistake. A decision to hide, to lie, to try and erase a moment that had almost destroyed our family. The clown was there to remind them. Not to me. He was the accountability they had escaped for 17 years. The birthday after that, I didn't receive a photo. Only a note. Asterisk, he's done counting. We are not. Asterisk. Police got involved when I showed them the emails, the metadata, the photos. They traced the origin to a photographer who had vanished years ago. The clown's identity was constructed from decades of obsession, a persona built from witness, not predator. Lila's profiles? Fabrications by the clown to test my perception. She never existed. Not really. Just another reminder of observation, control, and reflection. The apartment felt empty after that. Silence, no longer comforting, pressed against the walls. I rebuilt slowly, reclaimed the streets, sat in the cafe with steam curling from my cup, rain tapping the window, soft jazz playing. But I noticed things differently now. The small impossibilities, the unnoticed reflections, the quiet presence in rooms I thought empty. I still see the clowns sometimes, not in photos, not in emails, but in reflections, neon reflections in puddles, shadows in hallways, a faint rustle of paper in the wind. He taught me something I didn't want to know. Trust is not about people. It is about boundaries. Privacy is not a shield. It is a fragile surface. Obsession is not always violent. Sometimes it is patient, watching, counting, waiting. Memory is not yours alone. And safety is a story you tell yourself. Birthdays are no longer simple. Not really, but neither am I. And maybe that is the point. We exist in reflection, and someone somewhere is always counting. Story 7. Rain drummed against the windows, turning the city streets outside the high school into mirrors. Neon signs flickered in puddles, painting distorted reds and blues on asphalt. I sat alone in my apartment, staring at my reflection in the dark glass, thinking about how fragile I had become. Divorce had a way of rearranging your bones. Not violently, more like slowly, insidiously. My name felt heavier in my own mouth. I hadn't spoken much to anyone in weeks. Sleep was shallow, and mornings were longer than they should have been. My apartment smelled faintly of coffee and damp clothes. The radiator hummed. The refrigerator clicked. Even the faucet dripping in the bathroom seemed purposeful. I shouldn't have signed up to be a student again at 32, but the teaching certificate promised me routine, a foothold, something stable. Maybe I was rebuilding. Maybe I was hiding. The day he arrived, the air was thick with the smell of wet pavement and chalk dust. The students barely noticed him at first. A man in his late 30s, black coat dripping rain, eyes dark but alert. He carried a leather satchel, a notebook, and a calmness that made the room feel smaller. "Good morning," he said. His voice was soft but deliberate, measured. I watched him as he moved across the classroom. Every student turned toward him, some instinctively, others with suspicion. "I'm Mr. Kane," he said. "I'll be your substitute teacher for the next week." I remember the way he smiled at me, gentle, almost knowing, and for a second I felt safe. Like he had scanned me, understood the cracks I carried. I wanted to believe it. The first lesson was innocuous. Grammar exercises, vocabulary quizzes. Then he paused, pen hovering over the board. "Who here has ever lied to someone they cared about?" he asked. I felt a chill. The rain outside tapped faster. Hands went up, reluctantly, timidly. "Good. Honesty is the first step," he said. His eyes lingered on me. Lies are expensive. By the next day, something had shifted. Students were missing. Names remained on the board, but desks sat empty. Whispers filled the halls. I noticed Sarah, usually outspoken, absent. Her name still scrawled in chalk. The door locked by itself that morning. A click so faint that I thought it was part of my imagination. The lock didn't budge when I tried. Students looked at each other, unspoken fear in their eyes. Mr. Kane smiled faintly. "You see," he said, "the classroom is honest. And honesty has consequences." But the details were off. Too precise. He mentioned that Emma had cried over a breakup last week. That Jacob skipped breakfast every Monday. That my pen, the blue one I always used, was missing a cap because I had left it on the bus the previous Thursday. I told myself it made sense. He was observant. A good substitute. Maybe even a trained counselor. Maybe I was overthinking. The second day, he introduced a game. "I'll ask questions. You answer truthfully. If you do not," he let the pause hang, "you will be absent tomorrow." A ripple of unease passed through the room. But curiosity held us. I answered honestly. My own secrets, small as they were, rolled off my tongue. He nodded at each confession, scribbling into his notebook, pen scratching like nails on wood. By day 3, the voice of the students felt hollow. They whispered about their missing peers. Notes left on desks, names still on the board. And each confession he prompted seemed to dig deeper than anyone should. He knew my routines. The coffee I drank every morning at that corner cafe. The song I hummed while grading papers. Even my old nickname, something I hadn't shared in years. I wanted to believe it, that he was just perceptive, that I was imagining layers where there were none. But then the impossibilities began. He mentioned details I could not have shared. Not with anyone. Not online. Not even with my therapist. And yet, he did. One afternoon, as I stayed behind to rearrange desks, he said softly, "You feel like you're building walls, but you forget who's already inside." I froze. I don't understand," I said. "Of course you don't," he said, voice calm. Observant. Gentle. Not yet. The classroom door clicked again, locking without touch. I tried the handle. Nothing. The hum of the radiator felt like a heartbeat. The distant siren outside sounded closer. My phone buzzed, though it had been on silent. A text from an unknown number. "You've been noticed." He did not flinch, did not explain, just watched, as if he had expected me to panic. Days passed. The lessons became games of perception. He would ask questions like riddles, quietly, layering them over truths. Who misses their old life more than they admit? Eyes shifted. Silence fell. I felt my chest tighten. I realized then, he was not punishing lies. Not really. He was testing us. Testing me. Each confession, each hesitation was a mirror. And I was staring too long. By the 5th day, I started to notice students lingering outside the classroom before class. Watching. Waiting. Fear in their posture, yet drawn to him. He moved among us like water. Patient. Warm. Observing. "I see patterns," he said once, almost conversationally. "Even the smallest ones. You all wear them like badges." I wanted to believe it was kindness, but he knew more than kindness allowed. He knew the late-night texts I sent to my ex, the photos I deleted from my phone, the irrational fear that someone was always listening. I told myself it made sense. Maybe I was overthinking. And yet, on Friday, he asked me to stay after class. The room emptied. Chairs scraped. Rain streaked the windows in a blur. Neon reflections pooled on the wet pavement outside. My hands shook, fingers tracing the edge of my desk. "Why me?" I whispered. "You're like me," he said. Soft, almost reverent. "You notice patterns. You observe. You wait." I wanted to step back, but the words held a weight I could not shake. "Like you?" I asked. He nodded. Calm, eyes dark in the fluorescent light. "I'm looking for someone who understands, who can see without judging, who can act without fear." The next day, more students were absent. Names remained, chalk faded slightly, echoes of laughter and whispers that never came again. I tried to rationalize. Maybe the missing students had transferred. Maybe their parents had pulled them. Maybe I was imagining the pattern of punishment. But I knew the truth. I was being observed. Every move catalogued. Every routine mapped. Every secret noted. I started checking my devices obsessively. Phone, laptop, email. Nothing. Or nothing I could find. I stopped using the elevator. Walked stairs 6 flights, counting each step like a mantra. I installed locks, even though he had the classroom. The building was safe. I told myself everything made sense. Until the day the police came. A concerned teacher had reported him. Anonymous tip. Someone had pieced together discrepancies. The investigation was fast. Background checks revealed multiple aliases. He had been a substitute teacher at other schools, other districts, always moving before anyone could question the absences. Photos of missing students surfaced in hidden folders on burner phones. AI-generated voice recordings of confessions he collected from online forums. He did not resist, did not explain, only smiled when confronted. "You see," he said to me quietly, handcuffed in a hallway, "I never harmed anyone who didn't deserve to be seen." Months later, I returned to teaching. Different school, different city. I still hear the classroom door click in my mind, the hum of a radiator, the faint echo of chalk on blackboards. I check my routines more carefully now. Coffee, lunch breaks, apartment windows. Even my phone, always, always, always. Trust feels like a hollow room now. Observation is a shadow that lingers. Patterns are a mirror I cannot avoid. And I know deep down that some part of me, maybe the part that craves being noticed, understands him too well. Sometimes I whisper to myself, not all lessons are taught in books. Not all teachers are human. Some are mirrors. Some are walls. Some are echoes in empty classrooms, teaching you to notice everything and trust nothing. Because the last thing you learn is the easiest to forget. Even those who see you most clearly may not care for you at all, only for what they see. Story 8. Rain followed us the day we moved in. Not just rain, the kind that hisses against old asphalt and turns city lights into puddles of neon. I held the steering wheel, fingers white, heart slower than the windshield wipers. The house looked cheap, yes, but sturdy. A yellowed Victorian tucked between foggy streets and cracked sidewalks, like it had waited decades for someone desperate enough to live in it. I was desperate. Divorced for 6 months, still haunted by nights I couldn't sleep, still haunted by his voice, Daniel's voice, telling me I was forgetful, too emotional, too small for the world. He didn't hit me. People liked that about him. I did not. The real estate agent smiled too brightly. Cheap because of the noises, she said. Old pipes, creaky floors. She shrugged. Nothing a family can't live with. I told myself it made sense. The first night, the sound started. At 11:17, the hardwood floor in the hallway groaned. 1, 2, 3 steps. A chair scraped in the kitchen. Then, a glass shattered in the dining room. I froze in bed, listening. My son, Jamie, asleep in the next room, stirred but didn't wake. Silence swallowed the house afterward. I told myself the next morning that it was nothing. Pipes, old house, my imagination. But the timing was precise. Almost rehearsed. 2 nights later, the sounds came earlier. 10:49, then 10:23. The steps grew louder, more distinct. The glass dropped sharper. A scream. Not loud, not human exactly, but a raw note of panic. Jamie never woke. We tried to leave the house. Nothing helped. Every attempt to disrupt it made the sequence worse. Earlier, louder, sharper. It was like the house was correcting itself, rehearsing something that had not yet happened. I met him through a dating app the week after. Simon. His first messages were careful, observant. You like soft jazz, he said. The kind that hums behind appliances at night? I wanted to believe it. He arrived at our apartment before I could ask him to. Coffee in hand, umbrella dripping. He didn't touch me, didn't rush me. He just listened, really listened. He knew the names of my favorite cafes. He knew the songs I hummed while Jamie built block towers. He knew the street where I ran after Daniel had screamed at me one night. I told myself it made sense. Maybe he remembered. Maybe he was good at listening. Maybe I was desperate. The house continued. I began noticing patterns in the day. Phone buzzes that mirrored footsteps at night. Floor creaks that preceded voicemail notifications. Appliances humming when emails arrived. Every sound rehearsed, every notification matched. Simon said nothing when I mentioned it. He just nodded. Small smile. Houses have memory, he said. People too. I told myself I was overthinking. Then the impossible details started. Simon knew that I hid a secret notebook under the bed. The one where I wrote Daniel's cruelest sentences to myself. The one I had never shown anyone. He referenced a quote I wrote there months ago. I did not tell him. I had not shown him. The footsteps came earlier. The glass dropped before dinner. The scream echoed in the hall before anyone entered. One night, I followed the sounds. I found myself in the kitchen. The shattered glass waited on the counter. No explanation. Just exactly where the house had predicted. Simon was there. Not supposed to be. You're awake, he said softly. I knew you would be. I wanted to run, but I couldn't. Not from him. Not from the house. You can't change it, he whispered. Every action makes the pattern worse. The house isn't haunted by the dead. It's haunted by the events that haven't happened yet. I wanted to believe it. We tried everything. Cameras, recorders, changing dinner times, sleeping in shifts, moving furniture. Every interference accelerated the sequence. Every attempt made the steps louder, the scream higher, the glass sharper. Then I discovered the cameras. Not hidden ones, not cheap, expensive, inside the walls, behind mirrors, beneath floorboards. Some of the devices were small, almost invisible. Others had lights that blinked faintly. Simon did not panic when I confronted him. He only smiled, patient, almost tender. "You wanted to understand the house," he said. "You wanted to know why it listens. I just showed you." I told myself it made sense. I began receiving emails. Old photos, screenshots of texts, recordings of my voice from the previous week. Some were harmless, some intimate. Some I hadn't even recorded. AI voice cloning. Metadata. Tracking. Every breadcrumb I left online became a pathway into my own home. Simon knew all of it. Every public post, every private thought I had typed, every location check-in. He said it softly, almost kindly. "You left these traces." I just followed them. I wanted to believe he was safe. I wanted to believe it. The house escalated. The footsteps moved from the hallway to Jamie's room. The glass shattered beside his bed. The scream now came from the bathroom, then the living room, then the kitchen. The noises repeated before bedtime, before dinner, before breakfast. Like a broken metronome of terror, rehearsing the day yet to come. The climax arrived the night I stayed up. I could not sleep. Rain tapped the windows. Street lights painted the walls orange. Sirens wailed distant. My phone buzzed endlessly. I followed the sound to the staircase. The last step creaked under my weight. Simon appeared. Not walking. Standing. Smiling. "I had to show you," he said. "The house records futures. I just cataloged them for you." I felt rage, fear, love, disbelief, all tangled. The police arrived minutes later. Not fast, but enough. They had logs, screenshots, device serial numbers, burner phones. Simon's face fell the first time the light hit it, and he realized the setup was not just his play anymore. Multiple victims emerged in the investigation. Women whose lives Simon had studied, cataloged, mirrored, and rehearsed in the houses they rented. All carefully constructed, all monitored, all groomed. I survived. Jamie survived. The house remained. They stripped walls, rewired electricity, removed every device. But the memories did not leave. The rehearsals, the impossible sequences, the anticipation of violence and sound, it stayed in me. I moved again. Quiet streets, old apartment buildings, a studio where rain tapped windows, neon reflections pooled in puddles. The world continued. People continued. But I carried the house inside me. I still pause when I hear a creak in a hallway. I still check mirrors when brushing teeth. My phone still buzzes sometimes at night. Not messages, echoes. Shadows. Patterns I cannot quite name. Trust is not automatic. Safety is a reconstruction. Privacy is fragile. Memory is not a record, it is a door. And every door has someone outside, waiting for a key. The house repeated its lessons. I carry them like a second heartbeat. Because some places, some people, are haunted not by what has been, but by what will be. Story 9. I woke up to silence. No hum of the refrigerator. No distant city sirens. Just the faint tap of rain against the window, like tiny fingers drumming impatience. I sat up, rubbed my eyes, stretched my arms, and then froze. My reflection wasn't there. Not in the mirror across from my bed. Not in the chrome of the faucet. Not even the darkened glass of the window. I blinked, leaned closer, tilted my head. Nothing. Must be dreaming, I whispered. But the dream didn't dissolve. The rain didn't blur into nothingness. The apartment remained cold, fluorescent lighted, and hollow. I was alone. Alone with a reflection that had left. For the first few hours, I convinced myself it was fatigue. Stress. Trauma left over from my breakup. Mara, the one I thought I loved, had gone, leaving everything in my apartment too quiet. I had moved cities to escape her, escape memories, escape me. And now this. I took a shower. Water streamed down, vibrating the tiles. Steam fogged the mirrors. I stared at myself through condensation. Nothing. No reflection. I dressed and left. The city was gray and dripping. Rain-slicked streets reflected neon from cafes, bars, signage. Steam curled from manhole vents. My boots tapped the pavement. Puddles shivered at my steps. I passed a shop window, and there it was. Not me. Not exactly me. A figure mimicking my shape, but wrong. Hands crooked at unnatural angles. Head tilting at odd moments. Its eyes followed me, not my reflection in it. It watched me independently. I stopped, heart hammering. Maybe I'm losing it, I muttered. Yet it moved in ways I had not. Jerky, mocking, almost playful. I blinked, and it winked. Not me. Not mine. By the end of the week, it had become a game, or a torment. Windows, puddles, the black screen of a cafe laptop. I would sit across from strangers, sipping coffee, and see it there. Across the street, behind frosted glass. Always watching, copying, failing at copying. Then came Lila. I met her at the cafe near the corner, where rainwater pooled like black glass. She slid into the booth across from me without knocking. Soft voice, attentive eyes. She didn't start with small talk. She started with observation. You look like you've been following yourself, she said. I laughed. Nervous. Not joking. I what? She smiled. Calm. Safe. She smelled faintly of roasted coffee beans. I know you. Or at least, I know that you think you are. I wanted to believe it. I told her small things. She repeated them back, understanding. Not judging. She remembered my favorite music, my odd habit of flipping cups in cafes, the tiny sketches I left on receipts. She knew things she couldn't have known, and I told myself it made sense. I rationalized. Maybe she had seen me before. Maybe coincidence. Maybe I was lonely enough to ignore the warning signs. The reflection started moving differently. Less a mimic, more a mock. Small smirks, deliberate delays, head tilts. Sometimes it lingered where I wasn't. When I turned corners, it was there before me. When I blinked, it blinked differently. I stopped sleeping. Apartment silent, rain tapping the window, my phone buzzing at 2:13 a.m., unknown number. Voice note, distorted, almost mine. Little one, it whispered. Why do you run? I dropped the phone. The hum of the refrigerator felt like a heartbeat. Floorboards creaked. Footsteps outside the apartment. I left, walking streets under neon, fog curling around my boots. Puddles mirrored not me, but it, watching, following, mocking. I ducked into cafes, bookstores, waiting for a moment of calm. But calm didn't exist anymore. Everywhere it was there. I tried digital surveillance, cameras on my building, metadata from emails, social media logins, dating apps I hadn't used in years. New profiles, all designed to lure me, all disappearing before I could investigate. Lila tried to comfort me. She sat across from me in my apartment, hands folded, soft jazz leaking through the thin walls. You're not alone, she said. She knew my routines, my secrets, my habits, too much. Yet she seemed safe. At first, I told myself she was safe. I rationalized red flags. Maybe I was overthinking. Maybe it made sense. Maybe I wanted to believe. The reflection started stealing fragments. A movement, a glance, a grimace, a blink. It no longer copied me exactly. It performed me badly, deliberately. Mocked the way I walked, laughed, looked. I woke one night, rain tapping against the window. Apartment dark, humming fridge, phone buzzing. A message. I saw you. No number. No sender. The reflection appeared behind me in the mirror now. Or rather, not behind. On the other side of the room. Watching. Separate. Free. I ran. City streets. Neon bleeding into puddles. Sirens distant. Footsteps not mine echoing mine. I called the police. They came, skeptical, polite. A trace of digital surveillance. Fake accounts. Burner phones. AI-generated voice notes. Metadata proof. Enough for them to act. Not enough to make sense of the who. The reflection was gone. Lila disappeared. She left a note. I tried to help the real you, but you are not the real one either. It was tired of copying. I don't know what she meant. Weeks passed. Apartment quieter. Mirrors filled. Windows reflected correctly. Streets reflected only themselves. Neon still blurred in puddles. Fog still curled in corners. The hum of the refrigerator remained. The rain tapped, but something inside me had changed. I look at my reflection now, and sometimes, when I'm alone, I see a smirk. One that is not mine. One that watches me from a puddle or a shop window. And I realize, I am no longer certain which of us is real. Which of us has been copying whom. Trust, I learned, is fragile. Identity mutable. Privacy, a thin pane of glass between what you are and what others believe you to be. Sometimes reflections leave, not because they are broken, but because they are tired of pretending. And maybe, just maybe, they leave you to wonder whether the person staring back at you is truly you, or a carefully constructed lie you've carried all along. The rain continues. The neon still bleeds, and I still wonder. Story 10. Rain fell in thin sheets over the city, washing the neon into streaks of pink and green across the wet asphalt. The bus stop bench was cold and damp, and my hoodie did little to keep the chill off my shoulders. I had moved here 3 months ago. 3 months since my parents' fight became silence, my mother's phone calls stopped, and the apartment I once called home became a ghost. My life had contracted into a routine of school, coffee, and the uneasy loneliness of trying to rebuild without anyone noticing. It started with the app. No one knew where it came from. One morning, every phone in the school lit up with a small black icon, a spiral that pulsed gently like a heartbeat. The name, Whisper. I opened it. Prediction, you will cry before lunch. I laughed it off. A glitch. A prank. By second period, my eyes were wet in English class. I tried not to draw attention, but the app updated immediately. You ignored the first warning. Outcome accelerated. Panic crawled under my skin like cold water. My phone buzzed constantly. Each vibration sounded louder than the last. Teachers didn't notice. Classmates didn't notice. No one did, except for him. Eli. He sat a row behind me, dark-haired, calm, unassuming, always with a notebook open. When our eyes met, there was a quiet recognition, like he had noticed something no one else did. You okay? He whispered once, voice low enough for the pages between us to absorb. I think so, I said, though I wasn't sure I did. You're not. I blinked. My chest tightened. Maybe you're overthinking it. He smiled, comforting, observant, a presence that made the cafeteria hum fade into background noise. The next day, the app updated again. Prediction, someone will hum your favorite song in the hallway. I laughed at first. Silly coincidence. Then, passing by the music room, I heard it, a soft, hesitant hum. The tune was mine, from last week, the one I sang in the shower. I stopped, heart pounding. People walked by, laughter, lockers slamming. Eli was there, smiling faintly, as if he had expected me to notice. I didn't know you liked that song, he said casually, as if reading my mind wasn't terrifying. I hummed it yesterday. How private? I didn't answer. I wanted to. I wanted to believe it was coincidence. But the app didn't stop. Prediction, your locker combination will be revealed to you. Ignore and suffer. I froze. My locker was halfway across the school. Hands shaking, I approached it. The combination rolled in my head, exact. Every number. How could it know? Eli walked beside me. No one else was around. Who else knows? I whispered. He looked at me calm, his eyes reflecting the flicker of the fluorescent lights. Only the people who look, he said, and you're very easy to read. I laughed nervously. I told myself it made sense. The app began giving instructions. Tell someone a secret, or face prediction. The first student who ignored it ended up crying in the hallway, just as the app predicted. The second tripped on the stairs, exactly where the app said. Fear became obedience. Panic became pattern. I stopped leaving the classroom. The rain outside seemed louder through the windows, tapping against glass like fingernails. Footsteps echoed in hallways empty for hours. Phones buzzed at night. Notifications without names. Voice notes that played static until they whispered my fears aloud. Eli stayed close. Always close. In the library, by the lockers, even on the bus. He asked questions. Small, intimate, probing. About my morning routine. My favorite cafes. The corners I liked to sit in. The way I brewed my tea. The song I listened to when I was alone. Each detail was a shard of me I didn't know he could see. I wanted to believe it was empathy. Safety. I told myself, maybe he just notices things. Maybe I'm paranoid. But then the app escalated. Prediction: you will be humiliated in front of your classmates. Ignore this warning. I woke up to texts I didn't remember sending. Photos I hadn't taken. Videos of me leaving the apartment, walking to the bus stop, entering the school. Someone had followed me. Someone new. Eli noticed my hands shaking before anyone else did. "You need to calm down," he said. His voice was gentle, warm. But I realized then, he always seemed one step ahead. He knew I'd be anxious before I was. I told myself it made sense. He cared. He understood. The predictions turned personal. Prediction: your past heartbreak will be exposed. Ignore and consequences will follow. I stared at the phone in the dark. Rain tapped the window. Neon reflected off puddles like fractured glass. The buzz of my phone made me flinch. The app showed messages from my ex, screenshots I thought deleted, private emails, the names of people I trusted. Eli was there, calm, seated on my couch, watching. "You can't hide from patterns," he said. I noticed the gaps too. I tried to tell myself I was overreacting. I told myself, maybe he's just careful, caring. The next day, someone fainted in the hallway. The app had predicted it. Someone else tripped. Another student whispered secrets they never intended to say. Panic spread like wildfire. Fear became contagion. Eli stayed close always, observing, guiding, a comfort, until it wasn't. One evening, I followed him to the library after school. The rain had stopped, leaving streets slick and empty. Neon from shop signs reflected on the wet asphalt. Footsteps echoed, my own trailing behind his. He paused near the exit, looked at me. "You want answers," he said. "You want someone to be real." "I do. I am," he said, almost kindly. "But reality is subjective." Inside, he opened a laptop. Multiple screens, folders labeled with names, photos, metadata, GPS logs, messages, all of us, all our secrets, the app, the predictions. It was him. He had created it. Every subtle panic, every private thought, every fear. He watched us like insects under glass. He was fascinated, obsessed. "You're enjoying this," I whispered. He looked at me, dark eyes reflecting the glow of the screens. "I'm studying," he said. "But yes, I admit the chaos is beautiful." I ran. Hallways, stairwells, floors humming with emptiness. The cafeteria smelled like old coffee. Rain streaked across windows. Buzzing phones in lockers, distant sirens. Footsteps echoed behind me. The police came after I reported it. They traced the app. Burners. Fake emails. Data logs. Surveillance footage. Every step he took to hide became his undoing. He didn't resist arrest. He didn't fight. He only looked at me once, in that moment, and smiled faintly. Months later, I still feel the pull of the app's shadow. My phone buzzes, and my chest tightens. A new notification makes my hands shake. I moved apartments again. Higher floor. No smart devices. No online profiles. No apps. The hum of the refrigerator at night, the taps of rain against glass, distant music through neighbors' walls. Everything became hyperreal. My life condensed into observation, into careful patterns, into watching my own reflection in windows. Eli's name has vanished from headlines. The police kept him locked away, but his presence lingers, a reminder of how easily trust can be exploited. I sometimes think about the app, the spiraling control, The quiet invasion of a life that only wanted to exist. Privacy is fragile. Obsession is patient. Boundaries are illusions until someone crosses them. And some people, quietly, will always study what scares you most. Then one day you realize fear is never truly private. It can always be coded, tracked, predicted, and whispered back to you. I survive. I move. I breathe. I rebuild. But I will never sleep with my phone in the same room again. I will never think a notification is harmless. And I will always, silently, wonder who is watching the empty streets outside my window. Because survival does not erase memory. And memory never forgets the sound of your secrets being played back like music only someone else can hear.